This is Greenland, a place called Greenland, even though it's ruled by ice. On a map, it looks like a giant frozen block pushed to the top of the world. Remote, cold, and thinly inhabited. More than 80% of its surface is covered by an ice sheet, and the population is only around 50,000. For many communities, daily life still leans on coastal fishing, local services, and Danish subsidies. For centuries, Greenland sat on the edge of history. Few powers competed over it because it seemed too harsh, too far, and too expensive. But in the 21st century, that perception is changing because the ice is changing. As warming reshapes the Arctic, Greenland is no longer just a blank white shape or a barren emptiness on the map. It's drawing attention, and at one point, even the United States, specifically Donald Trump, publicly floated the idea of controlling it. So, what would it mean if Greenland belonged to the United States? Start with geography. Greenland is the largest island in the world. It sits just above North America, stretching toward the Arctic Ocean, positioned between the North Atlantic and the North Pole, almost like a bridge between Europe and North America. Its land area is about 2.16 million square kilometers, larger than France, Germany, Spain, and Italy combined. But vastness does not equal habitability. Again, over 80% is sealed under ice. Average ice thickness is roughly 1,500 to 2,000 meters, and in some places it exceeds 3,000 meters. Second only to Antarctica, this immense ice mass shapes the island's terrain and climate, and it decides where humans can live at all. Most settlements are squeezed into narrow coastal strips, especially in the west and southwest. Go inland, and conditions turn brutal. Colder, higher, windier, with almost no permanent human life. The coastline shows how extreme this landscape is. It isn't smooth, it's broken into deep bays and fjords carved by glaciers. Mountains rise straight out of the sea, and in places glaciers still calve into dark channels, sending icebergs drifting out toward the Atlantic. If you count every inlet and bay, Greenland's coastline stretches over 44,000 kilometers, one of the longest on Earth, despite the tiny population. Put that in perspective. It's like an entire world-class coastline, shared by fewer people than a small city. On average, close to a kilometer of coastline per person. Climate follows the coast. The Arctic Circle cuts across the island. Winters are long, cold, and dark, especially in the north, where darkness can last for months. Summers are short and cool, but they create a vital window when light returns. Coastal waters open, and fishing becomes the economic heartbeat. That brief season is when boats move, supplies arrive, and communities feel connected. Inland, the cold intensifies and the land becomes nearly lifeless, with extreme temperatures and dangerous wind chill. Under the ice and along exposed coasts, Greenland is ancient rock. Some formations are over 3 billion years old, among the oldest on Earth. That foundation is why Greenland is believed to hold valuable minerals. Rare earth elements, uranium, nickel, copper, zinc, and more. The problem is access. Much of it is locked under ice or located in regions where roads, ports, and power simply don't exist yet, making development slow and expensive. That's the Greenland paradox. Enormous, resource-rich, and strategically placed, yet historically treated as marginal because ice makes everything difficult. And now, as the ice shifts, Greenland's importance rises. If Greenland were part of the United States, America wouldn't feel like it ends in Alaska. U.S. territory would stretch across a much larger Arctic belt, creating a direct presence at the top of the world. Greenland also sits near the shortest routes between North America, Europe, and Russia. In an age of satellites, long-range aircraft, and ballistic missile trajectories, distance is measured by flight time and geometry. From Greenland, early warning and surveillance can cover huge portions of the Arctic, because you're sitting close to the lines that connect the major powers. This is why the U.S. has maintained a long military presence on the island for decades, centered around the Thule area, now known as Pituffik. If Greenland were U.S. territory, expanding radar, early warning systems, and space monitoring infrastructure would become politically easier. It would also simplify logistics, more authority to build runways, communications links, and fuel storage in a place where resupply is itself a strategic challenge. Greenland would function less like a remote outpost and more like a central platform, an unsinkable aircraft carrier anchored along one of the world's most strategic northern routes. In a crisis, minutes matter, and Greenland is the kind of location that can buy minutes. But the Arctic shift is also economic. For thousands of years, ice acted like a barrier that kept Greenland beyond most human ambition. As the ice melts, resources become easier to reach, and routes that were once blocked begin to open. Arctic shipping lanes, once mostly theoretical, are becoming usable for longer periods. Routes from Asia to Europe could shorten by thousands of kilometers by traveling through Arctic waters rather than relying on the southern choke points like the Suez or Panama systems. Shorter routes can mean less fuel, fewer delays, and a different map of global logistics. And in the Arctic, where storms and ice can turn routine travel into an emergency, reliable rescue and monitoring can be the difference between a route that exists on paper and a route that actually works. If Greenland belonged to the US, America wouldn't just watch this happen. It would stand at the gateway. Greenland could support transfer hubs, refueling stops, search and rescue coverage, weather and ice monitoring, and emergency response along those corridors. In that sense, geography turns into leverage, not just a place on a map, but a position that can shape trade flows and long-term influence. And then, there are the resources people underestimate. Today, Greenland's economy is still tied to seafood, cod and shrimp, and subsidies. But that's only the surface. Greenland's strategic appeal is what lies beneath. Minerals that power the 21st century. Rare earths support electric vehicles, wind turbines, electronics, defense systems, and high-end manufacturing. Over time, rare earth potential alone is often framed in the range of hundreds of billions to over $1 trillion. Add other solid minerals, and long-term potential is commonly estimated around $1.5 to $3 trillion spread across decades, depending on costs, technology, and infrastructure. This matters because the United States wants to reduce dependence on supply chains dominated by China, especially for rare earth materials. If Greenland were under US control, it could become a long-term strategic alternative. Not easy, not cheap, but possible with patience and investment. Greenland may also hold offshore oil and gas potential in surrounding Arctic waters. Some estimates suggest the region could contain the equivalent of 17 to 30 billion barrels of oil, not counting natural gas. Not all of it would be developed, and environmental stakes are serious, but even partial exploitation could influence energy markets for decades. Taken together, Greenland is often framed as a multi-trillion-dollar strategic asset over the long run. Not a quick payday, but a locked safe that opens slowly as access changes. So, if Greenland belonged to the United States, the change wouldn't just be symbolic. The US would expand to the top of the world, strengthen its Arctic posture, and stand closer to emerging routes and resources. But Greenland is not a land for fast profit. It rewards patience, like a strategic savings account deposited into the future. And as the Arctic becomes a new center of global competition, Greenland is a key. Thank you for following this story. If you found it interesting, subscribe and turn on notifications. And don't hesitate to leave your thoughts below. I look forward to seeing you again.